In this video, we're gonna be editing a variety of photos using Dehancer, film emulation photo editor program for Lightroom and Photoshop. For me personally, digital photography is almost too good now, losing the qualities that give an image character and that timeless feel you get from film. And that's where Dehancer comes in. With over 60 real authentic film profiles, special effects like bloom inhalation, you can really give your photos that iconic film look. So let's break down the workflow, the features it offers, some pros and cons, and my final thoughts. Let's get into it right now. So full disclaimer, Dehancer did provide me with a 1-month free license to test this out. Now, I'm not getting paid by Dehancer to say any of this, nor do they have any control on what I'm saying. I am here to just edit some of my favorite photos and give you my real honest thoughts. And now that I've been using it for a couple of weeks, I feel like I can honestly give you an authentic review. And before diving in, let's answer a couple of things. What's the film look, and why would you want your photos to look like that? Well, like I mentioned, digital photography has honestly come so far, especially in the last couple of years, that everything looks near perfect. Honestly, losing the qualities and the characteristics, and nothing feels that special anymore. And that's the reason why so many presets, profiles, and looks are based off of film stocks, to really get that digital edge off of your photos and get those iconic looks you can from Fujicolor Pro 400H, Kodak Portra 400, or Cinestill 800T, to name a few. Okay, so now let's jump to the computer and edit some photos. Okay, so here we are first in Lightroom CC, the cloud-based version. So I use both Lightroom CC and Classic. I use Classic for all my client work and cloud-based Lightroom for all of my creative work, which is what most of these photos are gonna work perfectly for. Dehancer plugin does work for Lightroom Classic, and I did try that, worked fine, but I do love the fact that you can do them in Lightroom CC, open them up in Photoshop, do your edits in Dehancer there, plus whatever you wanna do in Photoshop, save it, and it pops back into here. So think of Lightroom as just home base for where my photos are gonna be, synced up everywhere on the cloud, my phone. That's just why I'm showcasing it here. So here are the 4 photos we're gonna be editing. I kind of picked a good variety. So first we're gonna do this studio portrait. This guy was the actor in my short film As I Dreamed that I shot last year. We got some really cool photos. Didn't get to share many of them, so here's a perfect chance. Cool studio portrait with a bunch of natural light, looks great. This next one is a landscape photo from Hawaii, so super excited to edit this. This next one with the horses, I know you're probably thinking it's kind of random, but it's actually because I'm gonna be showcasing a cinematic motion picture style of edit that you can do in there. And lastly, a behind the scenes lifestyle photo that you can do for you and your business, because clients love that stuff. Let's jump into the first one. So you're probably wondering, why are we gonna start in Lightroom? Shouldn't we just be starting in Dehancer? But there's actually some things you have to do first, not much. You kind of have to pre-edit your photo in Lightroom before getting into Dehancer, and I will show you that. I already have the preset made that Dehancer recommends to do to all of your raw photos, and I'll just apply it right here so you can understand what I'm talking about. Wow, look at that. Look at that dynamic range. First off, look at the window before and after, like blown out and all that detail. That's crazy. But basically Dehancer says that you want to make your raw photo really flat, almost like a log image out of video before we jump into there. That way maximizing the dynamic range and the looks that you can customize. So I just did those settings they gave me, which is kind of dropping the exposure, the contrast, the blacks, and saving that as a preset so I can just apply it each time. So here's what we're gonna do. You wanna basically do any preliminary edits aside from this to your photo as well. Whether it's the crop, so maybe we'll put him more on a third right there, that's good. The alignment looks great, white balance looks good. So any of that stuff you wanna do before. But now we're gonna edit this into Photoshop. So just hit right click, edit in Photoshop. It's gonna bring it up, okay. Now we're here. And this is what's so great about doing this in Photoshop. First thing you wanna do is duplicate your background layer and convert this to a smart object. That way, whenever we use Dehancer on this layer, we can come back to it, make additional adjustments if we choose to, not just committing to it. I'll show you after as well. Now we're just gonna go to Filter and hit Dehancer Film. So I'm gonna turn all of these looks off, and now it's the same photo that we had in Lightroom. So now before jumping into editing into these looks, I wanna just explain a little bit about how this is laid out, because it's honestly really basic. It might look a little intimidating, but it's honestly really easy to learn. So at the top you have profiles and presets. So presets that are made either by Dehancer themselves or other featured editors. I found that my favorite way editing is just starting from scratch, putting the profile, then applying the different things afterwards. Then at the top, you have your settings where, let's say if we turn this on and you want to bring your photo back to how it was, back button, so simple commands. And then you have your histogram, which of course enable that, zooming in, and then a preview before and after, and then all your develop modules on the side, which I'll explain as we start editing this. So the first thing that I really want to highlight with this photo in particular is how accurate and great looking skin tones you can get in Dehancer, because honestly that's the first thing that blew my mind. And I'm so stoked that we have such a dynamic image, because it, you know, when we first started in Lightroom it did not look like that, and then applying that preliminary edit, I already know it's gonna give some great results. So first thing I'm gonna do is go to profiles, and having a little bit of knowledge about what certain film stocks do, I know that I'm gonna be going to color negative, and I am gonna go straight to Fujicolor Pro 400H. That's a film stock that's really iconic for skin tones and just looks great in like every environment. I know right now you're like, wow, that's pretty dark, it doesn't look too good, but just wait. We're gonna do a couple of adjustments and it's gonna look awesome. Here's another really neat feature that other programs don't have. This push and pull reacts as you would for real film. So if you underexpose or overexpose when you develop the film. I've never done film, I know a little bit about it, so bear with me. You can get different looks like that, but we're gonna keep it just normal. First thing I like to do is jump over to the right hand side and go to expand, which is already enabled. We're gonna set the black point and the white point, almost the dynamic range of the photo itself. That's why we have the histogram. So blacks are pretty much where I want them to be. I don't want them to be clipping. Whites can go up just a tad bit. Immediately after that, I always jump to the print, which is another crazy thing. So you can tell Dehancer what kind of print you want this film to be printed on. Kodak Endura glossy paper is a great start, but as if you can see, we go to the other ones, it gives you different looks immediately, but we're gonna keep it on this. This right here is where it can really craft the look immediately. So I'm gonna bring up the exposure to where the skin tone should be, bring in some contrast, and now we have a much more correct looking image. And I know you're thinking, these skin tones look pretty desaturated, they don't look so great. Now hold on. Next, we're gonna go to the film developer, and this is where we can squeeze that color. Look at that, that iconic Fujicolor Pro 400H color is right here. Oh, and by the way, this is shot on my Canon R6, a Canon 35mm 1.4 lens. Look at that already. These skin tones look good. If you hold space bar, you see before and after. It's starting to not look so digital to me, which is what you really want out of this. So I'm gonna bring the exposure up a little bit, kind of just spacing it off the skin tones, and again, still squeezing out a little bit more color. So look at that. We have the detail in the windows, and then really good light and detail on him. This is already like right there, we could leave it, but there's a couple other features in here that you don't want to miss out on. So after that, we can kind of go into film compression, which kind of, again, even gives you more dynamic range, kind of squeezing down. So you can see if we enable it, you know, more window detail comes up, but I'm gonna just do a little bit of that. So before and after, just a tad bit. Done with print. And now we're gonna jump into film grain. This is kind of one of the things that, again, makes Dehancer so special and really selling that film look, because look at all these controls. If you're familiar with Lightroom or Photoshop, you have very limited grain control. It's just the grain, the size, and how rough you want it to look. But here we have where you want the grain to be, like in the shadows, midtones, color noise. So we're gonna bring that down, and the amount, I'm probably gonna bring it to like, 8, and bring the midtones down because I don't want it so much on his face, but more around the rest of the photo. So something like that. Zoom out, and now that photo has that really nice film texture. That's looking really good. Again, before and after, man, I'm loving how this is looking already. So here, these next two effects are my absolute favorite. And again, one of the things that makes Dehancer really special, Emulation, and you can see what it's gonna do here. And you can see here, look, this lens is a little older. It naturally has it. And so that's basically what this effect is doing, is emulating that. If you have much newer lenses, they get rid of that completely, and so you can add that back in to give it more of that authentic feel. Honestly, that looks pretty cool to me. I'm loving it. And finally, bloom. This is really cool because this is like you're using a diffusion filter. Let me just show you the results. Look at that. I'll amplify it even more so you can really see. So look at his face. I'll zoom in. It looks really glowy, right? And not so contrasty and digital looking. So again, just selling that film look even more. And yeah, that looks awesome. That right there, space bar for before and after. Look, here's before, straight out of Lightroom with those adjustments and then that look. And then here's another great thing. Now that we kind of have the photo where we want, which I love this look, you can still go back to your film profiles and select other ones to see how they look with these same settings. So another really iconic portrait film stock is Kodak Portra 400. Look at that. It's almost a more desaturated, moody one. So if you hit Z, you can go back to where we were. Another good one is Kodak Gold 200. That looks great. So it's pretty much preference at this point, but I'm gonna leave it at Fuji Color Pro 400H because that one just looks great. Look at those skin tones, man. I get excited about this stuff because I feel like I can't get these great of looks and colors that I want just with regular Lightroom editing presets or anything like that. And now that we're back in Photoshop, it makes this as a smart filter. So we can turn it off and on, and then if we wanted to make additional adjustments, we can duplicate this layer, rasterize it, and now we have a layer that we can make adjustments to. So let's just say, for example, we wanted to dodge and burn some of these parts here, doing some of that, or we wanted to, you know, clean up his hair a little bit, whatever adjustments you want to do. That's why I love doing this workflow versus doing it in Lightroom Classic where it just cakes the edit on and that's it. So let's say we're happy with that. We'll flatten the image, hit save, command save, and then when we X out of here, this photo is gonna pop right back into Lightroom as a separate one. So it's gonna be like a stack. So you can see right here, this number 2, and now we have the before and the after. And that's so great because Lightroom CC syncs to the cloud, syncs with Lightroom Mobile. So I have these photos already on my phone. All right, so that's it for this one. Now let's jump into that landscape photo because man, I could edit landscape photos and look at them all day. Just my favorite types of photos, honestly. So this is a photo I shot in Hawaii because I got married there and I made sure to come home with like a terabyte full of photos and video from there because man, I just love this type of stuff. But you can see here, this was shot on my 5D Mark IV on a 16-35 f4 lens, ISO 100, 16mm, f7.1, 1/80th of a second, handheld. Let's jump again. We're gonna do the Dehancer preset right here to flatten that image out. And you don't have to just always like not do anything else. Like in this case in particular, I know I want to bring up a lot more of the shadow detail in this for Dehancer. So I'm going to do that beforehand, kind of lifting it up like 65 or so to have a way more dynamic image. So kind of based off the histogram. Okay, so now that I have the photo back in Dehancer, I know that I am specifically looking for a certain film stock. So I'm going to go to the profiles, enable it again, and I am going to go to color negative, and I'm going to start with Kodak Ektar 100. That is a really iconic, colorful and punchy film stock, which is great for landscapes. Like already right there, the colors in this look great. Before and after, a couple of changes obviously we're gonna do, but it's already looking really good. Ooh, I kind of like that. Makes it a little warmer, like sunset, so pulling it a little bit up. So now we'll jump again to expand, kind of see where our points are at. Honestly, all that looks really good. Then again, jump straight to the print, and here's where most of the magic comes out again. I'm gonna bring up that exposure, getting the image to where it should be, contrast, film developer, and bring out that color. Like, oh man, now it's coming to life. Look at that. And that's what I love. Like all of the results and edits that I've been getting out of Dehancer look really natural and not just like over processed. Obviously you can go overboard, but you know, a lot of these develop module tools just give the photo like life. Like that looks so good. You know, zooming in and everything is preserved and looks great. Like nothing is getting crazy. Especially since we have these skies right here that's kind of blown out. I'm gonna jump to film compression, like especially for that. And oh, look at that. Look at that sky detail come back, just enabling that. So honestly, I could leave it right here. This looks great. But another thing that I'm gonna show you is color head. This is a cool feature as well. This gives you even more color control in the hues, in the shadows, the midtones, whatever you want. So if you come over here to yellow and blue, you can see we can manipulate the kind of look that we want. And honestly, getting this more of a blue look for the water is looking good. You can see before it looks kind of green yellow. Now it looks like more blue. That looks really nice actually. Because I love film grain, I'm gonna enable that, zoom in to really see how much is going on, bring it down to like maybe 5 or so, and then not so much in the midtones, a little bit in the shadows and highlights, just giving it that extra texture here before digital, and then that roughness just makes it look more like film. So I love how that's looking. And then I don't think I'm gonna do any collation. It might look kind of weird. Beautiful landscape photo. That looks awesome. I have to print that. So again, hit OK, and there it is. You bring this again back into Photoshop. So you can do whatever edits you want in here, save it, and then bring it back into Lightroom, and you're good to go. Okay, and then now we're gonna be editing a motion picture, a cinematic motion picture style photo. And what I mean by that is as if we're trying to emulate like this was a screen capture from like a film. And I love this because it reminds me of like the show Yellowstone. We have the mountains in the background, this like behind the scenes shot with the horses, and I thought it'd be perfect for this. What I'm gonna do is also set this to a aspect ratio of 16:9, where I make it look more like a shot out of a movie. Put on that Dehancer preset, looks great. Yeah, looks pretty balanced. And we'll jump into Photoshop and Dehancer. Okay, so now that I have the photo in Dehancer, we're gonna go for the film type. We're gonna go to motion picture. This is so cool that they have this as well. Basically, you can replicate popular movie film stock looks. One of my favorite one already is the Kodak Vision 350D. You can see that this already has that film look to me that you would see in movies. D for daylight, T for tungsten on some of these, so we can just cycle through them so you can kind of see how they look. Honestly, this one. Yeah, let's do this one. This is looking pretty cool. I know it's not there yet. You're probably thinking this just looks like a photo, not so much like film, but it all comes down to the print. This would probably be printed on Kodak 2383 print film. So look at that. That's looking awesome. Now we can go back to our film stocks and see, and we're gonna really need some film compression for sure, because we want that dynamic range to look more like it was shot in logs. So something like right there. And I'm gonna go back to source and I'm gonna warm it up, giving it that warmer feel like that. So color head, I feel like this is definitely gonna add a little bit more to this. There we go. These colors are looking real nice like that. Before and after. And of course, we need to get that digital look off, give it some film grain, bring that amount down a little bit, probably keep it as is, bring the noise down for the color. And then I am gonna enable halation on here. Oh, look at that. You can see over here, like between the really bright highlights where it really comes into play. And then we're gonna go down to bloom, give it that diffusion filter look. Just with these initial edits, here we have a really digital, regular looking photo, and then this looks like it's like a shot, a still out of a movie to me. Obviously, I could just spend a lot more time doing some tweaks in here. Yeah, it's like I'd love to see more sequences of this, like if it was a movie. That's really cool that you have these options to give and replicate these film types of looks. So that already is one of my favorites. Okay, and lastly, we have a lifestyle behind the scenes photo. I thought this would be relevant because, you know, some of my viewers, you have real estate media businesses or you just work for yourselves, and I want to show you how you can actually use this for your regular work as well, because one thing I've realized is clients love to see you behind the scenes doing your work, not just your results, not just the work you produce, but also you working and how you work. And so photos like this on your website, on social media, I've just, in my experience, have gotten almost more work that way. This is also shot on the Canon R7, made a video on that comparing it to the R6, and we used the 85mm 1.4 art lens, is at f1.8, 1/80th of a second. We didn't have image stabilization on, so it's actually a little blurry. Rookie move. Before jumping in, of course, go to the Dehancer pre-editing, and yeah, that looks great already. So, you know, I'm gonna bring the contrast down even more because I can always add it back in. That's ready to go. So let's edit in Photoshop and then Dehancer. Okay, so now that I have the photo loaded up in here, I know that Fujicolor Pro 400H is gonna look really good on this, just because again, dealing with skin tones right off the bat, it looks really good. And I'm gonna put it as is, jump to expand, and kind of see where my points are, and then go to the print. That works, and bring up the exposure a little bit and that contrast, and then go to film developer and bring in that color. Nice. So you can see here that that color, the skin tones just look so good under that film stock. Like honestly, could edit any photo that's a portrait with that film stock and it's gonna look great every time. I feel like it also makes editing easier, honestly. So let's see, we can enable film compression, and wow, look at that sky detail that comes back. Wow, that's so cool. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit, but yeah, we want those beautiful twilight sky colors in the background. See, we didn't have to do anything in the source. We did the film developer to add some color. We went to film compression to bring back that sky detail. Then we expanded the points, black and white points where we wanted them. The print is where a lot of that image comes back to life. I'm not gonna do anything in color head. Definitely gonna add some film grain. I like to zoom in to really see how much film grain is being added, and I tone it down between anywhere from 5 to 10. So in this one I'll do 8, bring down the color grain and gives that nice texture. And that's personal preference. You could totally use this, not use the film, or you could not use the profiles and use the other filters in here like grain and bloom and all that. Just thought about that. But I am gonna enable halation. Let's see how that looks. So tone it down a little bit. And finally bloom. You can see right here on my face. Let me turn it off. Just gives it that nicer bloom around it. So yeah, that looks really good as is. There you go. That's kind of a full work through using all of the tools I showcased for one photo, how you could use it behind the scenes of you working, anything like that. And here's some other features that you can do. You can hit A and you can create a preset, and you can also export them as well. So you can just save different versions of these, or you can also jump to the preset they have made themselves. I'm happy with that photo. Plenty of dynamic range that I feel like got saved and looks great and natural. Timeless, that's like the biggest thing about this. You're not gonna look back on these photos and be like, what was I thinking? These look awful, like sometimes I do. Or at least my early work. So these clients will be happy with them forever. Okay, so now that we finished the photos and I've been using this program for the past couple of weeks, I do have some pros and cons worth mentioning. First off, the program works great. Like, it's really solid and it's not buggy whatsoever. Not something like Premiere Pro that crashes all the time. Even though on my new machine, I haven't had any crashes, which is great. But what I'm trying to say is it runs smoothly and I didn't have any issues, and so that's a big thumbs up for me. The second pro is that it's really easy to learn. You know, even if you just jump into it, start messing with their presets and then make adjustments, or do it from start to finish like I did, you can really easily learn what each tool does and get pretty good results out of it no matter what. So it's not like Lightroom or Photoshop that do have a bit more of a learning curve. That's where I feel like beginners that jump into Lightroom over edit because they don't exactly know how the tools work, or how everything works together, I guess what I'm trying to say. But in this program, you can get really good results, probably in your first try. And then a couple of drawbacks that I noticed. So one thing is that I don't believe that you can use it aside from a plugin. Like, it's not a standalone program. Like, you can't just open Dehancer and edit photos. You have to go through Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One or other photo editing programs, because it is available for those. So for me, not a problem. I think that's great, and I love that because Lightroom, the cloud-based one where I would edit these photos and syncs up, and I love that. But if you don't have the Adobe photography plan, then you can't use that until you have that first. So you have to make like 2 investments. And the second thing that I realized is it would be really hard to batch edit, because you can't necessarily do that. For example, let's say you have a wedding gallery of 400 photos you gotta edit. How you would in Lightroom, do your initial edits, sync the preset across, or sync the same settings, adjust them, so on. You would have to go one by one, where you could still open Dehancer again and use the last edits that you did, but you would have to go one by one as far as I understand. And I'll clarify in case that's wrong, but those are the 2 things I would say are kind of a drawback. And honestly, it is the best film emulation program that I've used, especially for someone like me that really aspires to get that film look out of my digital photography. Even so, to the fact that I guess this film emulation video fits perfect. Actually got this for Christmas. It's a Kodak Ektar H35 half frame camera. This is an actual film camera where you'll get it, send it off, get it developed. This has been a fun toy to carry around. Still haven't developed the film. The great thing about it is it does 2 film photos on 1 regular size. So it's pretty cool. But all to say that I love those types of looks, and I feel like Dehancer nailed it, especially with everything it offers, and it's really unique. And even other desktop-based editors, they all do mostly the same thing, but this one I feel like is really unique with what it offers, like in regards with like the halation, the bloom, the paper print, all of the different effects give it that really unique look. But it's definitely not for everyone. Some people might not want that film look. They want more of that bright, airy, natural digital look, or they might want those moody, digital, bright colors, like not really looking like the look that we showcased here, and that's totally fine. But if you're looking to get that digital edge off of your photos and get more of that authentic film-looking aesthetic, Dehancer is definitely the way to go. And the cool thing is too that they also have a mobile version and a video editing version, which I've tried out the mobile one and it's actually great. And the video version I'll probably be testing out hopefully in the near future. Gotta see. So if you're interested in checking out Dehancer, you can head to the link in the description. And if you use code Andrei, you'll get 10% off and support me and my channel through that affiliate link. So use the code. So that's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment down your thoughts on what you think of Dehancer. If you have any other additional feedback or tips, subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be part of the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.